Hello there. Games don't always have to be frivolous. They can be about serious topics. On this episode, we'll be talking about end-of-life issues, palliative care, dementia, and financial hardships. I wanted to let you know up front so you can decide if you want to join us for this episode of Introspective. Hello there. My name is Scott Nicholson. I'm a professor of game design, and on this series, what I do is I start with a spark from a game and use that to explore other games and psychology and game design. It's kind of like if you were in one of my classes. On this episode, I'm going to be talking about some serious games, and we're going to start by talking a little bit about this game, Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. So this is a game that was published by Hub Games, designed by Michael Fox and Rory O'Connor, and it takes on the challenging issues of palliative care. Palliative care is what happens when someone is at the end of their life and you are keeping them alive and trying to keep them calm. And during the game, you are serving as a set of nurses and you're attempting to work with your patient. As you talk with your patient, though, you learn information about their life, and that information is shown in a couple different ways. So it's a legacy game, meaning the game builds on a story, and you will uncover cards that are blurry, and then later on in the game, you can get a clearer version of these cards. As you lay these cards out, it begins to paint a picture of stories of Billy's life. During the game, there's two things that you are having to struggle with. And the first thing is that nursing is difficult. There's a lot of stress that's going on. There's a lot of demands on nurses' time. So you're trying to manage the workload of nurses and staffing. And you're working with Billy and Billy's palliative care. And the challenge with this is you need to work to keep Billy calm in order to talk to Billy about his stories. And many times you're having to make choices of, do I take care of Billy's health or do I learn more about Billy's past? And that reflects a difficult situation that people face. And when you're in this palliative care situation is do you continue to talk to someone and get information from them, or do you just let them rest? And that's a choice you have to deal with in this game. Now, I really like games that take on difficult situations. Games are tools for communication, and they're great tools for allowing us to share viewpoints about aspects of the world that we've engaged with that other people might not have. In my case, I work with someone with dementia, and the interesting challenge with dementia and the frustrating challenge that I face is that in a case with dementia, these memories may have never actually existed. And when you're talking with someone who has dementia and is struggling with it, they may have a memory from the past that in their mind is completely true. And you know it's not, and then you have to decide. Do I try to correct this person's mindset, knowing that this will agitate them and make them less calm and put them in a bad mental state? Or do I just go along with it and accept that, yeah, all right, we'll accept that reality happened and keep them calmer? And it's an ongoing struggle that you have to deal with. And I could see making a game that would help people understand that this is one of the real frustrations when you're working with someone with dementia, is always having to balance the reality that is out there with the reality that the person has, and deciding when do you need to interfere and say, well, actually, that's not true. Because sometimes there's issues around health, around taking medicine, situations where you do need to get involved. Now, I love games where people are able to tell something of their stories. And I would like to encourage you to think about your own stories, to think about your own cultural background, to think about the things you've engaged, say, in the workplace or growing up that other people haven't, and take those as the sparks for making your own games, for making games that tell stories that other people's don't have. This will help us avoid having so many games that are about zombies or trading the Mediterranean, things like that, but rather have games where people are able to tell their stories. But I have to offer a word of caution about these kind of empathy-building games. There is a problem with these kind of games, and it's a problem I'd like you to be aware of, both as a designer and a player. Now, when you make a game, when you make any game, you are simplifying a situation. You're bringing it down so that it can be played in a relatively short period of time, and you're having to make choices about the complexities and what to remove in order to make the game work. Now, there was a game that was called Spent, and Spent is a digital game, and the idea of Spent is it allows you to play in the role of a single mother. It's a branching narrative game where you make choices throughout a month, and you get to see if you can make it to the end of the month. If you make all of the right choices along the way, then you can end up making it to the end of the month, but if you don't, then you run out of money. Well, some researchers took a look at the impact this game had on players. Now, the goal was to raise empathy about people in this situation, to help folks understand the challenges that they face. But what they found is that some people, after playing the game, came away with the mindset that, well, if people in this situation would just make the right choices, they could make it through the month. So they're just not making the right choices. Well, this is simply wrong. Society isn't fair. And based on where you were born, based on your race, based on your culture, based on things out of your control, you don't have access to the same choices that other people do. Sometimes there are no choices that you can make that will be successful and help you win the game in the real world. And so the simplicity that was embraced and the fact that they added and made sure you could win the game created the situation where some people took away the wrong lesson and came away just feeling like, yeah, they just need to make a better choice. So the lesson to take away from this study and the design of these games designed to build empathy, one is for designers and one is for players. First, for designers. Recognize that when you simplify a situation or you make it and force it into a game structure, you may be watering down or even changing your message. And it's really important to play test your game and to talk to people after they play your game about what they now believe about the situation. You're only going to discover this through playtesting with people who have different cultural backgrounds, different economic backgrounds. Play it with people who are in similar situations. Play it with people who've never heard of the situation and get an idea of what they're taking away from your game. And as a player, it's really important that even if you've played a game about a life situation, don't take from it that you understand everything about that situation. We could say, oh, well, I've played Holding On. I understand palliative care. I understand how this works. And I understand that we can talk to people and get information from them. It'll just agitate them. But that's okay because they can make it through that. Because you have to simplify things to make a game. Don't take assumptions from these games and apply them as your only source of understanding in the world. Now, what these games can work really well for is to help you have a conversation. They can provide you with ideas, with context, with some questions that you could ask people who are in this situation and say, hey, I played a game that did this. Is that true, or is that true in your situation? To help you have a more in-depth discussion and a better understanding of what's going on. But after playing one game, don't come away from it thinking you fully understand what's happening in that situation. So that's a little bit about some serious topics, and I'll be talking a lot about serious games throughout this show. That's a lot of what I focus on in my teaching. There's many interesting concepts that are out there, and I'll continue to explore them. But for next time, we're going to talk a little bit about this magnetic mummy and why it makes a game just a little bit more immersive. Until then, stay introspective, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.